So it's that time of year again. It is Monsterbash season. And for those unaware of the chaos that is Monsterbash, many moons ago, my friend Trent started the project to get a bunch of creatives together making the weirdest monsters imaginable. Basically, everyone illustrates a set of cards with monster arms, legs, tails, honestly just anything. At this point, they get weirder every year. Here's some of the ones that I drew, foreshadowing potentially. And then we all pick a set out and make a monster inspired by what we've pulled. This year, to mix things up a bit, we're doing Monsterbash Remix. Now, I'll link Trent's video below explaining what the changes to the format were and why he did that, but basically some of our cards had splits down the middle. Those got chopped up and mixed with other halves to create even more pandemonium, as if it wasn't bad enough already. And then on top of all that, in order to stop duplicates being pulled, we didn't draw our own cards. Oh no, they were chosen for us by the Oracle of Ooze. It was a very serious and humbling experience, to say the least.
Welcome!
Hello.
The Oracle doesn't know what you're laughing about, but that's okay.
The Oracle, being an oracle of course, knows many things. Not maths though, sadly that hasn't quite made it to his part of the universe it seems, considering he drew me an extra card above the amount I should have had. Although clearly by this footage I was too busy listening intently, obviously, to notice, so we're just going to accept that the Oracle knew innately that I needed the challenge of an extra card, and therefore we're gonna use them all. I'll go into more detail about the cards as each one comes up and gets incorporated into the design, but to summarise just a few of them, we've got a muscly torso, pigtails. I somehow managed to be the only person that got two matching halves of the same remix split cards, so that tells me that tentacles need to be a major element, as the Oracle clearly deems them important. Oh, and he also pulled this knee face card that I drew with the hope that some poor bastard of a friend of mine would have to use it in their monster. Guess that's going to be me then, isn't it? Getting started, I knew I wouldn't have very long to make the monster. I was on a tight deadline of a couple days, and as you can see by my very high fashion carpal tunnel wrist support glove, Vogue I am available, I couldn't do too much intense sculpting this week. So to give our muscular chest and head a start, I thought the best option would be to use an action figure. And since apparently Action Man just doesn't exist these days, what's that about? I went with a wrestling figure instead. Now it just happens that the cheapest one I could find happened to be probably my favourite wrestler, so CM Punk it is. This is a cheap figure and it doesn't really look all that much like him. Is that foreshadowing bell ringing again? Nah, surely not. The other half of the torso card was giving me a bit of a Jabba the Hutt kind of vibe, just all tail, no trousers, so I opted to go with the tail and use the other cards elsewhere. I made an armature and got to work conditioning some polymer clay to cover it in a first layer to work off of. Turns out I hadn't used it in quite a while, so it came through the pasta roller like this, which was really great for that carpal tunnel, I must say. Now I guess it's time for me to tell you, or admit in shame may be more appropriate, the theme of this build. The Oracle, along with pulling the cards, asked us to make a wish for our monsters, and as it had become a bit of a joke with my friends that I'd previously made a slightly spicy monster, let's say Monsterbash 2023's BDSM Dungeon Master, I decided it would be funny to try and make this one even spicier. Yep, that is just how my brain works, and getting a laugh out of my friends is worth days of work anytime. So I decided with the cards I had to make a kind of take on a sexy devil archetype, with a few twists of course. Once the base layer of the tail was baked, I started adding little circles of clay. I went for more of a scaly look rather than exactly copying the card. You can interpret them however you want after all. I started small and worked up to bigger ones as I went up the tail towards the torso. I basically just cut out shapes in a thin sheet of clay and blended them on, and with a nice coat of clay softener I could pop that back in the oven for another bake. Obviously our spicy monster needs a partner to be cuddling up with in the cold nights of hell, and since I got the karma of pulling the card that I drew, I figured I should take the punishment and make it as is. No cop-outs. I don't really like sculpting realism, so I made it a bit more of a chunky, muscly, weirdly shaped leg. Once that had a bake, it was time to do the face. Look, I can make excuses here, the carpal tunnel, I was rushing, but really there's not much that I can say to justify this, is there? I knew I had to give it a bit more of a suggested pleasure happy expression, if you know what I mean. Since these two are going to be having a pre and or post-coital cuddle in bed, which, yes, is what we're doing here. And so I tried my best with limited time and hand movement to pull that off.
Every moment I live is agony.
Let's quickly move on, shall we? Back to the main monster, we had to tackle that tentacle card. Now, any fellow millennials who were around when the internet was awash with tentacle-based memes will be able to attest that this was pretty fitting with our theme, so what better representation than making more tentacles than I actually needed to. 6 to be precise. I made these how I made the tentacles in my scab video, basically rolled in some texture to some epoxy clay and added tiny balls which I squished into suckers. Lex, do not make a joke at that, you child, and I left those to cure. Whilst we've got the roll maker out, I took the opportunity to use it to make some nice big pigtails for our guy here. I feel like he needs a name so that I can dissociate this from being CM Punk, so Trevor, I guess, is getting pigtails. I thought since we were doing a sexy/horny devil archetype, these could kinda be a stand-in for horns. I used a tiny strip of clay to be the hairbands and moved on to getting him dressed. Now, of course, this model is a reference to my previous Monsterbash, which had a chest harness, so of course I had to give Trevor one too. I used the epoxy clay this time and added a few extra straps for detail. As the clay was curing, and curing fast, I realised that because I'm currently moving, my jump rings are all in a box somewhere, so I had to run and find some old jewellery to dismantle to get the tiniest of metal rings to finish it off. The bottom half of the face card is this starkly illustrated beard situation, so I added a much pointier and longer devilish beard and textured that to match the existing hair on the figure. I considered resculpting the face, but he is giving a kind of how you doing facial expression, and if we learned anything from that bloody leg, it's that I just don't have that in my arsenal, so we're going with it. Like I said before, it doesn't look that much like him, does it? There's that bell sound again. What is that? One thing I'm trying to learn at the moment is to get rid of my perfectionism. It's no easy task after 30-ish years of being like this, but doing a project on a time crunch is certainly a good way to start. Usually I'd be berating myself that things don't look as good as I'd like them to, especially because I'm a pretty slow sculptor and I take a while over all the details, but time we just do not have at the moment. And you know what they say, perfection is the enemy of done? Or is it good? Either way, done is the priority right now, and we'll hold out hope for the good. Now that the tail has had its last bake, I could glue old Trev in there and use some scales of epoxy clay to cover the seams. It was definitely looking a bit more mermaid than anything else, but I liked how it turned out, so I won't complain too much. Mostly because I'm the only one to complain too. In my world, the customer is not always right, and if I want to be a Karen to myself, I won't be winning that argument. Not to mention that haircut would look absolutely abysmal on me. Next, we had to have a fitting for the tentacles with our leg friend, who I guess also needs a name now. So Steve the leg had to come in here and snuggle up so I could get the shape right. The good thing about this epoxy clay, it's Procreate that I'm using by the way, is that it has just the right amount of flex when cured so that it keeps its shape, but I can bend a little if I didn't quite guess right how I'd want them to sit. So we got one tentacle wrapped around Steve like an awkward teenager on a first date in the cinema, hover handing for dear life, and the rest wiggling up in the air, their purpose to be revealed later. To disguise the edges and bring that harness detailing across the model, I added little wrist cuffs the same way, with some more jump rings pilfered from jewellery I've pretended to myself I'll wear someday for way too long. We'll let Trevor and Steve chill/cure all their epoxy bits for a while and move on to their lounging place of choice. This idea actually came about because I couldn't quite figure out how to fit in the castle card and the wooden leg cards. They didn't really fit in with the rest of the monster, and I do always like to make a base with a story for my models if I can, so I used them as inspiration for our lover's King of Hell sized bed. I used lollipop sticks and coffee stutters to make the headboard and footboard? Is that what they're even called? I guess not very inclusive, as between our two lads here there's only the one foot, so maybe tailboard is better? I stuck on a piece of temporary foam to get the height right, since I'd already been making the tail which will touch the floor, so it had to match or else we'd risk Trevor's tail dangling off the edge like a limp spaghetti, obviously. I used Foamex for the base and cut out an XPS foam rectangle for the mattress, which will stick down a little bit later. With lots of hot glue, I secured everything together and added some wooden dowels for the base of the legs. Okay, so for the bed, we're going to start taking some inspiration now from the barky leg card over here. Now, whenever I do bark or trees in my videos, quite often I will turn to my collection of Sylvaneth bits for some extra detail. If you have a life, you may not know that that is a Warhammer army, my army of choice, as you can tell here. But usually what I would do is look through my collection of bits that are left over from models that I've already built. That's just not cutting it anymore though. So we're going to cut into a lovely fresh sprue. This is a Darthu model that I have that I'm just not using. It's just an extra, I've already got one. And for me, that is a problem, being too precious about things. Other than the perfectionism, we also need to get rid of that. So that's what we're doing today. I mean, I don't know what I think in my head, maybe that it was expensive, I don't want to mess it up, I don't want to separate the kit, even though I haven't made a model as directed in years. I mean, I would rather kit bash or sculpt something nowadays, but still in my head, I just cannot do it. But no more. That is the message of this video. The second message of this video. Don't be too precious. The third message is don't take any messages from this incredibly cursed video. Yeah. I picked out some choice bits that I think will work as representations of those barky pieces and got to work making some wood texture. My tried and true method for this is using hot glue. I do have a tutorial for this on my channel, but in essence I slap down big globs of hot glue, let that set up a bit, and then use really light pressure and the hot end of the nozzle to remelt and drag glue up and down to make the bark texture. Whilst I did this, I made some stretching roots across the headboard and tailboard to make the piece look like a bit more of a complete thing and not just disjointed elements. Then I added some more glue, stuck in the model bits, and continued the bark texture around them. And of course, this is a very fancy bed, so for a bit of extra ornamentation, I added these bits I had floating around. To get rid of the always infuriating hot glue strings, I use my lower temperature heat gun, which kind of just melts them back into the model. As always, be careful where you're pointing it. If you aren't paying attention, you'll be blowing loads of strings all over the place. I promise not all of my videos are like this. We've only got a couple cards left to incorporate, and this little ghosty looking horrified just makes me laugh, and I can only envision this being the look on the face of anyone who might stumble upon the scene we're creating. I'm seeing a decadent, hellish castle where our devil resides, and poor, oh god, I need to think of another name on the spot here, poor Tiberius has mistakenly floated in. I mean, come on now, want to knock next time, mate? Bit of privacy too much to ask for in the fiery pits, is it? Bloody hell. He's just some more epoxy clay that I've textured to look like ripped sheets, since that's what we all know ghosts are made out of, and some little hands with which to peek around the corner. Time to get back to the boys, which have had a nice white prime, which as always makes it really nice and detailed on camera, but not to worry, I've chosen a lovely colour scheme of also white, with some black and some pops of colour. I saw the stark style of the beard card and thought that could be cool for the model as a whole. I then quickly realised that just black and white would take much more painting talent than I have to make look good, so I decided on grayscale for the majority of Trevor. I layered up various grey washes over the white base to show shadows in all the recesses. These are just some speed paints I've watered down a little to use as a wash. Then I came in with a little white and light grey to dry brush back in some highlights. I painted all of the suckers black for some nice contrast, and then based all the hair in it too. Recently I've been looking to do some more different and interesting colour schemes for my models. I guess I just got bored of making everything 50 shades of brown. Although on this one, I guess it's 50 shades of grayscale? Genuinely did not make that connection until right now. I promise that was not an intentional reference. Although based on the rest of this video, will you believe me? Probably not. The more I paint this thing, the more I'm starting to realise that my earlier assertion that the action figure didn't look enough like CM Punk that I had to worry about it may not be quite correct. I mean, maybe it's in my head, but it does actually look a little bit like CM Punk, doesn't it? which isn't great, especially because of the theme of this video. So I do apologise profusely to CM Punk, who is obviously not watching this video, and hopefully not watching this video. Please turn off if you are. But it's a little bit strange, isn't it? I promise he really is my favourite wrestler, and I had no intention of making this weird. You know what, I'll prove that he's my favourite wrestler, and I'll probably cut this bit out because I had no intention of ever telling this story. But once when I was a teenager, I had to go to a psychologist because I was a bit, you know, and one of the things that they do is make you choose a guiding star, like a celebrity or a fictional person, and you, in your head, ask them advice and give yourself the advice you think they would give you. Now, I'm a millennial, so all of the other people seeing this psychologist apparently all chose Dumbledore. She said maybe 1 or 2 people had chose Gandalf, but pretty much across the board it was Dumbledore. I'm not a Potterhead now, nor was I then, and thank God, honestly, but especially not then, so I chose professional wrestler CM Punk, which is not the same thing at all. And I mean it, she was really hammering on this Dumbledore thing, like she would say, you're being bullied or something mean to you, so Dumbledore would say, turn the other cheek, ignore it, rise above, be the bigger person, don't say anything. Is that what your person would say? And I would say no, because obviously you don't need to know anything about wrestling to know that that is definitely not how a pro wrestler, especially one known for shit-talking everyone, would react to something like that. So she was not best pleased. I mean, after all these years, honestly, I think I'd probably take the advice from CM Punk over Dumbledore. So really, who won in the end? Still not me, because I'm making weird models in the spare room of my house though. So, yeah. I decided that the tail should also be a bit darker since it was just looking a bit samey and I wanted a bit more of a pop. So I painted over it in black before doing some heavy dry brushes of increasingly lighter greys and off-whites. Then I did the same to the suckers and hair to bring out more details there too. I quite like the grayscale look and I think I might experiment with it a bit more in the future. I held my breath to paint the tiniest dots for the eyes and immediately made an arse of it, so I went back and painted them black later off camera. But since they stayed like this for a bit, I had to show you my absolute failure here. Dr. Shaky Hands strikes again. Now for that pop of colour I mentioned, I thought the harnesses should stand out a bit, and so what better colour than a nice deep sexy red. I carried this on to the hairbands as well and painted the silver rings that I'd primed over in white with the same silver that they already were. Whilst he dried, I grabbed Steve and decided that for some contrast he shouldn't be grayscale too, but in fact a nice bright colour. And the sexiest colour, that isn't one of the ones I've already used, is of course purple. He got some lighter dry brushing for the highlights and nice white eyeballs and teeth. Steve has defo been to Turkey for a set of 20 quid veneers, but let's not tooth shame him just yet. There is much worse to come. A bit of darker purple to accentuate the suggestively raised eyebrow, and of course what romantic evening is complete without some luscious red lips. I used the same red to paint the toenails, which I can only assume were painted about 4 months ago and are just left to grow out over the course of a year, which is the only way that I and every person I've ever known has ever painted our toenails. If you've used nail varnish remover on your toes, you are a performative toe painter. There's no other option. I tried to redeem my pupil painting skills on Steve here, and yep, it's even fucking worse, isn't it? But you know what? We're just gonna go with it. Let's be honest, no eyes in the world could fix that face. Our ghosty, Tiberius, I think I called him, got the same grey washes and light highlights. I copied the card with the big black irises and mouth, and finally did some acceptable eyes. Thank you, I'll be here all year. For the bed, I wanted a nice rich colour, so I started with a medium reddish brown base coat all over. I always hate myself for not owning brown spray paint when I have to base coat hot glue wood texture. Getting in about all those nooks and crannies is like trying to brush the teeth of an irate boa constrictor. But once that's done, we can slap on a heavy wash of dark reddish brown. I made sure to really get it on there, as this will be what gives us the final colour we want. Then I went over everything with some lighter dry brushing to bring out some detail and separate the different wooden parts. This also ages up the piece a bit, since I don't think it would be brand spanking new, pun definitely intended, and I'm sure has seen a wee bit of action to say the least. For some extra detail, I washed in a red speed paint to the carved details on the Sylvaneth bits. I didn't try to be too neat, as I wanted it to look like there was almost a hint of a red glow around the symbols when I went over it again with the brown dry brushing. And lastly, for some additional extravagance, I added some gold accents. The last card to implement is this 4-leaf clover looking one. I had a hard time fitting this one in, to be honest, but I thought maybe I could get away with using it as a how do I put this so that it doesn't get my YouTube channel completely banned? I guess it's a good thing that I don't have enough views to be monetized, as that would be right down the drain in this one. But let's say it's a tool for the job. Maybe he needs to paddle a boat, you know? Anyway, I'd say it was not very successful of an idea. The shape makes it kind of hard to tell what it's supposed to be in context, but I textured it kind of leathery, painted it up, and decided to help sell it by adding some red lip shapes, which didn't really help. But like we said, not perfect, not even good, but done. For the mattress, I grabbed that foam that I cut earlier and covered it in what else but red satin. I cut it out of a pair of pyjamas, RIP, sacrificed for the cause, and I'm just taping it down here because my sewing machine is also in a box somewhere, and I intend, aka pretending to myself, that I'm going to sew a bed cover properly at some point. I had to make pillows using hot glue, which is just not great as a medium for this, so those definitely need redone, which is still probably never going to happen, since as soon as I click upload I might as well be getting total recalled, because all thought of the thing I've made just leaves my consciousness. I laid Trevor gently down on his misshapen pillows and tucked Steve in beside him. What a lovely couple. Tiberius gets glued to the side, peeking round in awe of the sights to behold. I'd added more lips to this thing in hopes of making it better, which still didn't really work, but we popped it down anyway. And last but not least, I bought these hand-cut bracelets for the OG Spicy Monster 2 years ago, but they came in a big pack and I have quite a number of them left, so let's get rid of a few here. There are a lot of limbs going on, so they might need a couple of sets. And with that, the project was finished, and it was time to show off our models to each other in a call.
Awesome.
Wow.
So good.
That is amazing.
And so here we are, probably the most cursed thing I've made on this channel so far, which is probably saying something with my track record. But if you've made it all the way through, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my fellow creators and my lovely friends who are taking part in Monsterbash this year. I'll leave the playlist link below in the description, so please watch everyone else's videos. Everyone's worked so hard and made some really cool things. But thank you for being here, and please like and subscribe and check out the Patreon and all that jazz, and I'll catch you after. Thank you as always to my wonderful Patreons for supporting me, including a brand new bonus level member, James Ball. Thank you, James, for joining. I'll leave a link in the description in case you fancy having a look for yourself, but thanks again for watching.